Hello there everybody. I said in my last video that I was going to do a vinyl and CD update and I realized when I had turned off the camera that I might have spoken too soon because July haven't been that exactly good. I don't do monthly updates anymore, but since summertime and July is supposed to be one of the premier times to buy records, I can say July, the month of July. But it haven't been all that good. It's interesting. 1 year ago I was sitting here and showing tons of free CDs that I had gotten for absolutely nothing. And this year I have very little to show. It's interesting how a year can change so fast. But it's also a fact that what a difference a day make. 24 little hours. Because I went to the thrift store JorgenS today and I found a whole lot of great stuff. Among other, some really interesting jazz 7-inch singles. So I can do one still anyway. But let's start with CDs. That isn't all that much. Starting with this Swedish indie pop group from the 90s, This Perfect Day, that I liked very, very much back then. They did only a few albums, unfortunately. This is their biggest hit, but it's also the second last single that they actually released. But this one was a pretty good hit back in 1997, Fish Tank. And I absolutely love this this cover sleeve. They made it shaped like the form looked like one of these reel-to-reel tapes that you had. And made the cover sleeve look like that. And it's absolutely fantastic idea and stroke of genius to do it. We have Brother and Sister at the other track. I also have found this. This is Oasis and the Don't Look Back in Anger CD single from 1995. The problem is that I realized then when I got home that I have this one already. But this one is an upgrade when it comes to quality of the CD, but most of all for the cover. I might have use for it anyway. Now only 3 real CDs this month. No, this time. The stripes never leaves. This one I was very, very satisfied with. This is Randy Crawford. It's not often I find Randy Crawford in modern times. I have all from 70s all the way to the 80s. But the later ones is not all that easy to find, as she hasn't been selling that much during the later years. But I found this one, Play Mode, from 2000. This is a really great album. Really, really great album with some great production, very late soul with a little touch of house every now and then, sounding typical for the year 2000 sound, which normally isn't a good sign, but this one is really great. Of course, much is because of her voice, her fantastic voice, but it's really great melodies and also fits well with the production actually. So actually Randy Crawford works also well in the OOs. A CD, 2 CDs that I bought today at JorgenS. This one I was very satisfied with. I haven't listened to it, but it looks really, really nice for $2. A double CD with Chet Baker and Stan Getz, West Coast Live, which then indicates that this is live recording. We have one from the Hague in Los Angeles and one from the Tiffany Club in Los Angeles, 53 and 54. Released on Pacific Jazz, the performance series. So this I have nothing but high hopes for. This is a CD with the Nat King Cole Trio, Any Old Time. Nat King Cole, I don't deny that he had a great voice, he really have, but his best period were when he had his trio, because then he was the most jazz. Later when he did these orchestral vocal singing, it became like Frank Sinatra, a bit too much entertainment than actual jazz. So his best period were when he was more jazz with his trio, or when he was involved in other smaller jazz groups as a pianist. But it looks interesting. Recordings from the 40s. That was all CDs, actually. Let's go to vinyl singles that have been okay, actually. This is a Swedish band called Bel Air. This song, and they are famous for only one thing. They were in the national finals for the Eurovision Song Contest here in Sweden back in 1985 with this song, 1 + 1 makes 2. But as I collect Eurovision, of course, and while we're at Eurovision, 2 years prior in the real Eurovision, the Eurovision finals, this lady, Bernadette, represented Netherlands with her song "Sing Me a Song," but of course then well, the Dutch version also was not sung in English, but the title were in English. Anyway, 1983 Eurovision, and as I collect Eurovision stuff, this is old Eurovision stuff. This is great. Darry Hall and John Oates, Adult Education. I can go for that. No Can Do. Also on the B-side, real interesting. This one I thought I have, but I checked that I didn't, so I was very happy. Adam Ant and Friend or Foe from 1982. Juanito de Bandito at the B-side. Swedish music. Di Leva. Thomas Di Leva, a little odd figure in Swedish music, but real interesting song. Dansa din djävul, Dance Your Devil. In Swedish though. Danish singer, sorry for this up here, but I felt I gotta have this one because I heard it a couple of times in Swedish radio as a kid. Sunny Salomonsen from Denmark with Coming From My Heart, and a Danish version, Stemmen fra mitt hjärta, at the B-side, and I've heard both of them before in Swedish radio. So this one I remember, and it was great to actually find it. Now I think it is, well, this, I can show this before I go into the jazz. We have this one, Marie Fredriksson from Roxette, rest in peace, and Sparrow, Eye of the Sparrow, Sparrow Eye. It was a TV series in Swedish television back then in 1989. I actually only remember hearing about it. I never saw the series itself, but I think people today remembers this song more than they remember the actual TV series. Uh, and it is really, really a great song. This became a pretty good hit here back then. Of course, in the waves of when Roxette had huge success with The Look and so on the same year. But really, really great and touching and magnificent produced song. So highly recommended if you can bear with Swedish lyrics. Now, jazz. Actually, 5 jazz singles. We have an orchestra I never heard of. Andre Persiani and his orchestra. Normally, mosquito, sorry. Normally, I wouldn't care about because it sounds very much easy listening. But when I look at it, Taft Jordan, mosquito, creep. We have Taft Jordan, Lawrence Brown, we have Bud Johnson, a whole lot of interesting names here. Tyree Glenn, a couple of Duke Ellington names also. So very, very famous names in this orchestra. Recordings from 1956 in New York, in this French release. Even though it's Columbia and it's a Persiani in New York. All these names together with this relatively, for me, unknown big band leader. And we have Impressions of New York, Blues for Me, Myself and I, Tyree and Lawrence, of course then Brown and Glenn, between B. Way and Adam A.V. Strange title, but it sounds going to sound very interesting. And how about this one? The Dave Brubeck Quartet on 7-inch. Wonderful Copenhagen in Denmark, and Like Someone in Love at the B-side. And we have Dave Brubeck, Paul Desmond together in this Fontana release. Swedish trumpet player Rolf Eriksson was at the time more famous in USA than in Sweden. He played with a lot of American musicians, and here he plays with Cecil Payne, Duke Jordan, John Sims and Art Taylor. Visby Groove Alley, and Visby is the biggest city in the island of Gotland. And the flight to Jordan, this is recorded in Stockholm with American musicians. Rolf Eriksson and his American stars. I have some singles with singles and EPs with Rolf Eriksson. And this one is a great addition to that collection. We have here a couple of name that I never heard of, but it's 50s recording. Looks like anyway, and we have a couple of names that are recognized, but the main musicians, some of the main musicians I never heard of actually. Stu Williamson, Jack Sheldon and Bob Enevoldsen on valve trombone, trumpet and valve trombone. Then Don Fagerquist that I've heard of, Marty Page that I've heard of, Buddy Clark and Mel Lewis of course that I've heard of. Jumping at the Woodside, Look Around, Ida and Yardbird Suite. But 50s jazz, all there to discover new jazz names. We have Belgian guitar player, whistler, harmonica player, Toots Thielemans. Here together with Swedish pianist Reinhold Svensson, who was blind, in a trio with the songs Whistle While You Work, Carry Me Back to Old Indiana, The Blues and I, Nalen Blues, and Nalen was the famous club in Stockholm, is, because it still exists, and Secret Love from 1959, recorded in Stockholm. And Toots Thielemans, even though he's Belgian, had a lot of connections here in Sweden. He spoke Swedish also, and he was in Swedish movies. He was playing with Swedish comedian Hasse Tage and so on. So we had a lot of connections with Sweden, actually. I think that was all the singles. Going to the full length, starting with some 80s Eurodisco. A band that I don't find all that much with, but that I also have a lot with. Dutch, German, I think they're German, but there are some members that are Dutch. Group Bad Boys Blue and the album My Blue World. A band that I listened to a lot when I was younger and still like a lot, at least in this older 80s version. So happy to find this one, and even more happy to find this one. For $1 I found Impressions with Preacher Man. This is Impressions with where many of the members had left the band, but Curtis Mayfield was not a member of the band, but he was production coordinator and the owner of the label, of course, Kortum, of this album, Preacher Man, and it is sealed. Actually, not opened, and I got it for $1. Very, very happy. This one's going to be very, very interesting. Let's go back to jazz. Stan Getz in an album that left me be puzzled when I saw it first. This is Yesterday with Jerry Mulligan and Wal Gray, among others. A lot of musicians here: Jimmy Rainey, Al Haig, Paul Quinchette, Alan Eager, and also some vocal quartet. This was released from the beginning in the 50s as a look at yesterday, but then America, French label, have released it as reissued it as Yesterday. And what left me puzzled is it says nothing about date. If you want the songs, you have to pick out the album, which I have no use for when it is on the turntable, and says very little about what it actually is. And normally that to me is a sign that it is a bit low budget, but also it was these musicians, and it looks pretty much like a studio album, not a compilation. So I gave it a shot, and I listened to it. It's real good. So a finger of shame for the sleeve, but the album itself is real great. It's magnificent jazz, a real great. The vocal quartet fits real well into the style, and highly recommended, whether you have this reissue or the original A Look at Yesterday. We have a Pablo Records release with Roy Eldridge and Dizzy Gillespie, Oscar Peterson, Ray Brown and Mickey Rooker. Jazz maturity, where it's coming from. This is recordings from 1975. I got it for 50 cents, but looked very interesting. It is good, real good, even though this is 1975. Roy Eldridge and Dizzy Gillespie had their peaks. They're older, which you can hear a little bit that it isn't the same form as they used to have. Although it's Oscar Peterson and it is these names, so it's okay, but these names have done better stuff. But I'm going to keep it in the collection for now, at least. What happens in future callings, I don't know. But it is okay. Great finding still for 50 cents and to have. This one, Hoagy Carmichael sings Hoagy Carmichael into Hogo. Hoagy Carmichael sings Hoagy Carmichael. And some recordings. This one I was a little hasty actually. I saw this one with the Casaloma Orchestra. Wow. Maybe Casaloma Orchestra is singing is playing on all the tracks. No, only these two. The rest is pretty mishmash of different stuff that he had done, and I heard quick peeks and it wasn't all that. It was so. I'm going to give it a chance and listen to all of it, but I'm not sure that I will keep it actually, but we'll see depending on how good it is. I have Hoagy Carmichael albums that sounded way better than the quick peaks. Pointer Sisters. It's not every day I buy albums with Pointer Sisters because I'm not all that fond of their I think many of their stuff. I like Dare Me, I like those kind of stuff. Newton Dance was good. But I'm so excited to Jump for My Love, those overplayed, very overplayed songs that I am so fed up with. But this is an early Pointer Sisters from 1977. And you also have interesting names here. You have Stevie Wonder here, Ray Parker Jr. So I felt like, well, I'll give it a chance. And it is actually really good. So might be the best album that I've heard with Pointer Sisters. Of course, none of the songs come up with Dare Me, that I think is one of 1995's best, 50 best songs. But it is real great. It's more funk. It's funky bass on almost every track, and it is real great melodies. Far from this party 80s party stuff that you heard with I'm So Excited and so on. More funk, more soul. So actually, this Having a Party from 1977 is highly recommended. If you want something different with Pointer Sisters. This one I showed in a previous video. I think it was James Griffith's compilation video with a part 2. And I said then that I don't have part 1. Well, now I have, of this Tum Tum Motown compilation. Normally I don't buy compilations all that much. But I felt if I have part 2, why not have part 1? And it's great Motown 70s compilation also, so really fun to have. We have J Guys Band from 1984 and the album You're Getting Even While I'm Getting Odd. I'm starting to like J Guys Band even more actually. This is my 3rd album that I have with them. We have some albums that I bought today at Erikshjälpen. I don't buy all that much Charlie Parker. I said it before that Charlie Parker, I understand his greatness, I understand why he's an icon, but a lot of stuff that he recorded some of them tend to sound alike, and many of the songs tend to be the same songs that goes over and over. Hot House, cool blues, ornithology, and so on. But I felt like I couldn't leave this one out for $1. Charlie Parker, Bird and Chorus Volume 2. Because I still can listen to him, it's only that many of his songs tend to sound alike. But it's great bebop still from the 40s. And Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, Bud Powell, among others. Recordings from 44 to 48 and released by Savoy. So I felt like I couldn't leave this one behind. And 2 Swedish comedian albums. You have Swedish comedian Chadden Hellström, real great one. And we have Blå tummen, the blue thumb, håller färgen. Blue thumb keeps the color, holds the color. Blå tummen was a classic radio show with comedian Lasse Månsson in the 50s, I think. 50s and 60s. And this is an album with humoristic stuff from that radio show. Felt I gotta have. So let's hope for a little better now when we're going into August and the autumn and so. Until next time, I hope that you enjoy what's left of the summer. Take care, everybody, and so long.